This is One on One. We are pleased to welcome Sally Mott Freeman, author of The Jersey Brothers, a missing naval officer in the Pacific and his family's quest to bring him home. Good to see you, Sally.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We are not going to spoil this for anyone. We want people to go out and get this book. Real-life story of three brothers.
Yes.
Set it up for us.
Three naval officers.
World War II?
World War II. All of them went to the Naval Academy. Two much older than the youngest. One class of 30, one class of 33, and the youngest entered the academy in 36. And he only made it through 2 years, finished at Chapel Hill. By then, the mandatory draft had been signed into law, and my father, who was the middle brother, helped him get a commission in the Navy.
Say it again, your father.
My father, Bill, who was the middle brother, naval intelligence officer, helped his youngest brother get a commission with the Navy Supply Corps. Yes.
Talk about that.
My father, Bill, is the one in the middle, and this youngest, Barton, who was unaccounted for at the end of World War II, this is his high school graduation. You see, he was quite small. He was a premature baby, the beloved youngest member of this family. And the fellow on the right, Benny, was the gunnery officer on the USS Enterprise Naval Academy class of 30. So World War II broke out. My father was ordered to the White House from Naval Intelligence to set up a secret map room in the basement. The State Department didn't know about it.
What was the year?
It was the very beginning of 1942, right after, within weeks after Pearl Harbor.
So Roosevelt.
Yes, Roosevelt.
FDR.
FDR. And Benny was on the USS Enterprise, returning from Pearl Harbor a day late. They arrived on December 8th. They were delivering bombers to Wake Island, and so they narrowly escaped Pearl Harbor. And it was one of the few ships unscathed by that in the Pacific. And it went out again and again and again, the Doolittle raid, all the early hit-and-run raids, Midway, and other early battles, the most decorated warship in American naval history. But this youngest brother was sent to the Philippines right after he was commissioned, and he was wounded and listed as missing. And it's really about the search for the youngest brother by the older two. And it was a very painful, repressed family mystery for my father after the war. It caused a lot of tension with his parents. And
what about for you?
Well, and then, the children of that conflict, if it's an unresolved issue, it recedes in time, but it does not recede in corrosive effect on family, because you see your parent really struggling with this. And he had a certain explanation for what happened, and my grandmother disagreed with it. And so I found his White House files when I was organizing.
In your 10 years of research?
10 years of research. I found his White House files in the beginning of his own search for his missing brother from the White House map room, and several letters back and forth with Benny on the Enterprise, sort of trying to sort of lay the groundwork for this search. And several comments about his conversations with Roosevelt, who was very sympathetic, also had a son in the Pacific.
That's right.
And I was intrigued, and I sort of picked up where he left off. I went to the Philippines. I went to all the prison camps. I interviewed former prisoners of war, people that my father's first hire in the White House map room, who was extremely helpful, fellow sailors on the Enterprise with Benny, the eldest. And I did find out what happened, and it was a shocking revelation because it was entirely different from what the family was told in the 40s.
You also, so many pieces, so many aspects of your research, your grandmother's diary?
Yes, diaries. She kept diaries during World War II, and I found my dear cousin in New Jersey who actually had a box stacked with letters from former prisoners of war talking about their experiences, many of whom I found. And he said, I think that she had diaries, but I think that they were lost. And so 3 years later, I had a fairly workable draft. And he came to my own mother's funeral at Arlington Cemetery. And before we left to sort of caravan over to Arlington, he put a stack of books on my desk, and they were her wartime diaries. And I read them that night. It was sort of this curious mix of losing my mother but rediscovering my grandmother, a side of her, frankly, that I really had never seen. And so I started over and threaded her voice into the story because it was really crucial. She was right, by the way. She wrote letters to Roosevelt, Truman, the secretaries of the Army, the Navy, congressmen, senators.
She needed to know.
She was a mom, and she was maybe the original helicopter mother.
Yeah. And
she was very astute. She was a Wellesley graduate. She graduated from college at a time when 3% of the women in this country went to college. And she was sort of type A, you know. She wanted to know. And she was not alone, because there were many parents and families of men trapped in the Philippines on Bataan and on Corregidor. And Roosevelt's strategy was Europe first, and then we, you know, avenge the defenders. They felt, these families felt, they said, Germany didn't attack this country, Japan did. Let's go save these men. But they were in the Philippines, and we didn't have the resources to go get them. So it was really she was part of a movement called the Bataan Relief Organization that put a lot of pressure on Washington to amend their policy. And of course, here my father was working at Roosevelt's elbow when his mother just would not quit writing letters. But in retrospect, you know, incredible story.
In the limited time we have left, let me ask you, what has this book done for you?
Oh, well, first of all, it's given me tremendous closure, because I saw my father struggle with this. It didn't come up a lot, but when it sprang from its dark corner, it was, you know, usually a difficult stretch in the family. It was a wonderful writing experience. I've been a writer my entire career, but this was a new project for me, and it's been an amazing experience. I mean, I won't say I didn't shed a few tears as I made some discoveries, but it was a work of passion, labor of love, and it's had an amazing reception. So couldn't be happier.
Finally, for so many families struggling, excuse me, to find out. What's your message to them?
There are over 40,000 families in this country who have a loved one that did not return from a foreign war, all wars. And I have had, you know, hundreds of letters. How did I pursue this? How did I pursue that? Because for them, there's no closure. And closure is what they crave. And so I spend as much time talking about my book as I do trying to help them, you know, go to the resource. The resources have expanded, and you know, if it helps one person achieve the closure that I achieved for my own family, I'll have done my job.
We thank you. We thank you very much, Sally Mott Freeman. The book is called The Jersey Brothers, A Missing Naval Officer in the Pacific and His Family's Quest to Bring Him Home. Extraordinary work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
We'll be right back right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, Investors Bank, Seton Hall University, PSE&G, Hackensack Meridian Health, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and by the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.